Hey everyone, welcome back. Today I'm going to be making fried chickpeas. This is a great little snack that I used to make all the time by tossing the chickpeas with oil and then roasting them in the oven, but then I decided, why not just cut out the middleman and deep fry them? So that's exactly what I'm going to do today, and the first step is going to be to get my oil preheating. I've got enough vegetable oil here to come up about 1.5 inches in my pot, and that's going to go over about medium heat. Next step here, I'm going to go ahead and drain and dry my chickpeas. These are some chickpeas that I just had soaking overnight. And then I'm going to do as best I can to blot off any excess moisture with some paper towels. It's really important to get the surface of these as dry as possible because frying wet things can get kind of explosive. This was 2 cups of dried chickpeas that I soaked overnight, just to give you an idea of how much I'm working with here. I'm only going to do half of it for this application and save the other half for something else. So in the end, you'll see the yield of 1 cup of dried chickpeas. Alright, so my oil is up to around 350 now, which means it's time to start frying. So I'm going to put my chickpeas in, and I'm going to give those a little stir just to make sure nothing's sticking at this point. You usually don't have any problems with sticking here, but it's good to just be safe. And that's pretty much it for those. They're going to be good to go for a while. I'm going to check back in once every couple minutes or so, mostly just to see how far along they're getting, but you really don't have to baby these at all. So while those get going, I'm going to get started on my spice blend. Obviously, when these come out of the fryer, you can season them with whatever you want, but I thought it would be fun to try and recreate the flavor of these Old Dutch all-dressed chips. If you live in the US like me, you may not be as familiar with all-dressed chips. They're more of a Canada thing. In fact, I had to pay way too much money to order this bag online, but the flavor is pretty comparable to Zapp's Voodoo chips, if you've ever had those. It's kind of like a mix between barbecue and salt and vinegar. So to get things started, I'll do 1 teaspoon each of kosher salt and MSG. This is kind of undeniably the flavor base of all junk foods. And then I'm going to basically turn this into a barbecue rub. So the next thing in is going to be 1.5 teaspoons of brown sugar, and then half a teaspoon each of garlic and onion powder, half a teaspoon of mustard powder. This is going to help with the pungent nose that the chips have from their vinegary quality. And then about 1/4 teaspoon of oregano, half a teaspoon each of regular and smoked paprika. The smokiness obviously is going to contribute to the barbecue factor here, but too much of it becomes pretty overwhelming in my opinion, so I go half and half. And then a few grinds of black pepper, and that's going to complete the kind of barbecue rub elements of this spice mix. Now to capture some of the other elements, I'm going to do 1 teaspoon of sumac. Sumac is really floral and fruity, and in this context, I think it does really well to mimic the tomatoey, ketchup-y kind of notes of the chips. And it's also got a sourness to it, so it'll provide something similar to a vinegary bite. And then lastly, to up the tanginess just a little bit more, I'm going to add 1/4 teaspoon of citric acid. I tried to avoid the citric acid when I was developing this because I wanted the spice blend to be made of things that people would reasonably have stocked or could stock and use for other things, but it really does make a world of difference here. But of course, that being said, you can leave it out if you want. So now I'm going to grind those together in my mortar and pestle. I like doing it this way because it gives me a chance to break down the flakier stuff like the oregano and the sumac a little bit, but if you just want to mix these spices together in a bowl, that's fine. And now that's ready to go, so I'm just going to push that aside for now while I turn my attention back to my chickpeas. These chickpeas usually take me about 15 minutes to fry, and you can tell when you're getting close by the sound they make when you stir them in the pot. They start to sound a little bit more like marbles clanking around. So when you get to that point, when you start to hear that shift in the sound that they make, you can start taking a couple out at a time and tasting them until you get to your desired crunchiness. And those are tasting pretty good to me there, so I'm going to get these out of the oil and into a paper towel lined bowl to drain. And now the only thing left to do is to season these up. So I'm going to put in basically as much of my all-dressed spice mix as will stick. And I did add salt to my blend earlier, but really only enough for it to actually taste like anything. So the chickpeas are going to need more salt, so I'm going to add a few pinches of that as well. And that's all there is to it. These crunchy fried chickpeas are ready to go. These are such a great little snack to have on hand. They're pretty easy to put together, and they really fill that crunchy, salty craving that you may get for potato chips. Now I guess the big question is, do they taste exactly like the all-dressed chips that they were based on? The answer to that is probably not. It's not a complete 100% match, but it is pretty shockingly close, and they stand up as a great snack on their own anyways. So I hope you give these a try soon. If you do, let me know how it goes. Thanks.